Meantime, the communist regime in Cuba says it is preparing for war following this week's indictment by the U.S. of Raul Castro. Cuba's deputy foreign minister is calling it a, quote, political action designed to lay the groundwork for an American invasion. And the Cuban government is reportedly handing out pamphlets to citizens titled Family Guide for Protection Against Military Aggression. The text warns that the U.S. is threatening a military assault to, quote, annihilate the dream of Fidel Castro. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Cuba has consistently posed a threat to the United States.
Cuba not only has weapons that they've acquired from Russia and China over the years, but they also host Russian and Chinese intelligence presence in their country, not far from where we're standing right now. So Cuba has always posed a national security threat to the United States. They, by the way, have been one of the leading sponsors of terrorism in the entire region. We're not going to do humanitarian aid that falls into the hands of their military company that they have, and then they take that stuff and they sell it at the dollar stores and put the money in their pocket. That's not going to work that way.
Meantime, ICE agents in Miami say they detained the sister of a top Cuban military official who oversees a multi-billion-dollar military conglomerate running most of Cuba's economy. Let's bring in now Rick de la Torre, former CIA chief of station in Caracas, Venezuela, and Mike Gonzalez, senior fellow at the Heritage Institute. Gonzalez moved, by the way, to the United States from Cuba when he was 12. Gentlemen, great to have you here. And let me start with you, Rick. It seems inevitable, given the statements by President Trump and others in the administration, that change is coming. How quickly do you expect that to happen?
Oh, I expect it to be relatively soon. I mean, look, what we're seeing is this is the most aggressive U.S. posture towards Cuba in years. The indictment of Raul Castro over the Brothers of the Rescue murders is not just symbolic. It is Washington signaling that time no longer guarantees immunity for regime elites. But the bigger shift is strategic. Cuba is no longer being treated as a Cold War relic or just some sort of migration issue off our coast. The administration is framing Havana as part of a hostile network tied to China, Russia, Iran, intelligence operations, and even most recently, the potential military drone activity off the U.S. So the timing matters, and I think it's going to be a lot sooner than later.
And Mike, is that the framing of Cuba as a threat, is that fair? I think there's a lot of people who might look at it and think it's a broken island off the coast of Florida. Do we really need to be putting this much effort into it? But is it a real threat, Mike?
Yeah, no, it is. And it's a myth that the Cuban regime has lived off of for many years now. Cuba is a very large aircraft carrier, 90 miles from our border. It's got a signals intelligence base that it offers the Chinese in a town outside Havana called Bejucal. It collects electronic intelligence, everything from emails, texts, telephone calls. That includes Cape Canaveral. That includes many important bases in the United States. Cuba also is behind a lot of the mayhem on our streets. Don't forget that the People's Forum, Code Pink, the Tricontinental Institute, these are all institutions that whose leaders are trained in Cuba. So every time you see anything from protests against ICE or Gaza or Iran, these are all pretext. And these are all organizations that are doing Cuba's bidding.
So, Rick, do you believe that if and when it comes to any decisive action by the U.S. To oust the current regime in Cuba, it will be welcomed by the people of Cuba?
I have no doubt about that. I think the people of Cuba have been suffering for too many decades now and have recognized that outside of the island, it's a very different world. I think the strategy here for the administration, though, is pretty straightforward, right? It's not one of invasion, but really sustained pressure, legal pressure, financial pressure, intelligence pressure. The goal is to increase the cost of the regime survival while sending a message that adversarial powers operating in the Western Hemisphere will face consequences. And I think that's something that the Cuban people can certainly get behind.
Mike, give us some news from the future. Does this all happen as a result of U.S. military action or simply the internal collapse of the regime?
I don't think it's going to require military action. I don't think that. I think the regime relies on henchmen and goons who will put people in prison, who will beat up people who demonstrate. Once they realize that the United States finally is serious about getting rid of this enemy who hates the American way of life, the people surrounding keeping the regime alive are going to, what's in it for me? That's what they're going to say to themselves. And then we have seen protests. We've seen protests now almost every night. If nobody is there to harass them and put them in prison and arrest them, the regime collapses. It's not going to require any. It's not going to require any U.S. military action.
Yeah. All right, Rick De La Torre and Mike Gonzalez, thank you both very much, gentlemen. Great to see you this Saturday morning.
Thank you.
Happy Memorial Day.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.